So we're live. I'm here with Aidan. Aidan, how's it going?
What's up, dude?
Nice to see you. Nice to talk with you as always.
It's good
This
to see
is
you too.
my first. Oops, what's going on? This is my first stream in a while, so I may end up messing something up, but we can always fix it as we go along. It seems like it's working.
I'm sure you'll figure it out. You
Yes.
always do. I'm gonna let you lead everything because
Okay.
every time I try to
I'll take the lead. I'll take the lead. So, uh, tell us a little bit about what you've been up to.
working,
Working.
working, and
Yeah.
yeah, working, and I stumbled into a Rosary group today for the first time in
Okay. On purpose.
no, well, no. So I mean, so I've been going for walks. When I'm too lazy to do any kind of like formal exercise, I do the old like I'm just gonna get up and go for a walk, and I can kill two birds with one stone. I can say my prayers, and I can also like not feel like a fatty. And today I was like, if I'm gonna cut through the church that I go to, the parish that I go to, because it's only like a mile or two down the road. And so I was like, oh, if I see Father there, I'll just be like confession and then like hit him up for it. But instead, I saw a whole bunch of older women, we'll say, walking into the church. Don't want to offend anybody there, but I'm like, ooh, what are these gals up to? And I'm like looking at the billboard, or not the billboard, the like the board they have there with like all the confession and mass times. And this lady walks past me, and I quickly ask her about confession for the day, and then she's like, "We're about to say a prayer. We're about to do a monthly prayer meeting for um, like a rosary against abortion." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm already praying my rosary. Can I join you?" And they're like, "Yeah, come on in." So it was just me and a bunch of gals, and I joined them for really terrible music, and a rosary and a Divine Mercy chaplet, and
Wow.
they were all like super thrilled. They're like talking to me about stuff, and we're like, they were just really cute, really generous people,
Yeah.
and
How much time did that take to do the Rosary and the Divine Mercy?
35
That's
minutes
it.
maybe,
Oh, wow.
35-40 minutes maybe.
Wow.
I mean,
Okay.
the rosary at our church takes 20-30
Yeah.
minutes, and then
Yeah.
Divine Mercy chaplet is sneeze and it's accidentally finished.
Oh, okay.
That
Because
type of thing.
I only do the quickie 3 o'clock prayer, the one prayer.
I don't even do that, dude.
They're really
I
quickie.
literally deviate nothing anymore from my rosary. I just pray that because I'm just like
Oh,
I
that's
just
good. That's the best.
mm, I mean, mass and the liturgy of the hours is supposed to be the best, but
Yeah.
you know,
But I mean, if you're gonna pick a prayer, pick a pack of prayers, then I think the Rosary is right up there because it contains the Our Father, which is the best prayer.
yeah,
Hail Mary, second best prayer. Glory be, all these, all the best.
I I see it that way. That's kind of why I do it, and I also do it because um, it seems like the best way to introduce any regular Tom, Dick, or Harry into contemplative prayer, um, which is like the coolest aspect and the most underrated aspect of the Rosary. Everybody talks about it like from a meditative standpoint, but not so much a contemplative, unless they're conflating the two words for one another.
Yeah,
And of course, the Rosary is meditative because you're supposed to think about, the
mysteries.
mysteries that you're praying. But then they kind of like leave it at that, and it becomes very fixed on the formula, which involves meditation. But in true prayer, the progression is supposed to be from meditation then to contemplation, and nobody ever talks about like, well, what does that look like when you're using a tool like the Rosary? And so lately, my time has been kind of praying that more to then see what that would look like, because St. John Paul II assured everybody that like, no, this is a legitimate path to contemplation. But every source that I see that corroborates that basically says, well, yeah, it is a legitimate source of contemplation, but it's better to pray one decade really well than to pray the whole thing. And really, you should spend some time each day in pure mental prayer and do all the stuff that St. Teresa of Avila and all the stuff that St. John of the Cross taught us. And which I value that, but at the same time, I don't fully believe it because I'm like, well, all of the apparitions that have occurred have always said like pretty much one consistent thing, and that's pray the Rosary. It's not pray the Rosary and make sure you follow the words of Saint Teresa of Avila and Saint John of the Cross, um, and so not only that, but as a dude who tends to like uh, make things a little too complicated, I'm like, well, I don't want to do a bunch of things. I kind of want to just hyper focus on one thing, which is very inclusive of a big body of work. Um, then, have to like spend my time like, well, got to do a little of this and a little of this and a little of this, and it's like, I don't
Yeah.
really, I don't feel called to that. But what do you think about that?
Well, I think I'm thinking about now Naaman the leper getting healed with such an easy cleansing. Wash yourself 7 times in this ordinary water or whatever, and it's just like he was complaining it wasn't sophisticated enough. And I think it's the same with a lot of devout Catholics. They want that level of sophistication to justify their righteousness and all that sort of thing. But
Mm-hmm.
I think for humility's sake, it's all about recognizing the mercy of God and how easy it is to go to heaven. And that's
Mm-hmm.
part of the punishment of hell, is realizing how easy it would have been to avoid hell. And I'm reading a lot of Saint Alphonsus Liguori. I don't know if you know him.
Who's she? Yeah, I know her.
Yeah, so that he's emphasizing a lot the just the bare minimum sort of essentials of the faith,
Mm-hmm.
like love of God, to love God, to pray God to give you the grace to love God more and more,
Mm-hmm.
and
I'm always asking for that one
yeah,
because
it's tough. It's a tough one. It's a
it's a
tough
tough one.
one. It's a tough one, and
Yeah.
I tell God, I love you, but not as I should, not as much as I should. Please help me to love you more. Help my unlove. That's one of my favorite prayers. Help, I love you, help my unlove, or my lack of love. But the other thing he emphasizes, St. Alphonsus, is perseverance in the faith, so that as you age, and if you age, but
Mm-hmm.
as you approach death at whatever age, that you're not overcome by temptation because of the despair that comes because Satan and his demons are allowed to show you the gravity of your sins and how close you are to death and how little time there is to do good works and to repent. And that's sort of the final battle, right?
What do you think that despair looks like? Because they always talk about falling to that despair. Is that like just like jerking it, or is it like is it something like uh, is it something less concrete than that? Because
Can you expand on that? I don't
well,
want to
like
answer the wrong way.
like falling to despair at the end. Everybody says, "Oh, there's always that like you're attacked by Satan
Yeah.
and demons towards the end of the life, and like an unrelentless type of assault." But it's like, okay, so what does losing that fight look like? Does it look like committing like a
Doing
major
another sin?
sin, or does it look like apostatizing, or does it look like just like simply just laying there and despairing? Because like despair is always one of those sins that I've seen where I'm like, people are like it's mortal, and I'm like, is it really? Because I feel despair,
Yeah. Yeah.
all the time. But like to feel despair versus despairing, like I don't really like the ambiguity in
Well,
that.
I have some practical experience over the past 2 years of falling from grace and falling into mortal sin, and
Hmm.
it's really, really ugly. And the to pass the night with the hope and the prayer that you'll survive to the morning to go to confession. I mean, that's I've lived through that over the pandemic a couple of times, and it's horrible. It's a horrible, horrible feeling that, oh my God, I've offended you, and I may not live to go to confession. And I know if I have perfect contrition, I know that I'm already forgiven. But is my contrition perfect? I've never felt like my contrition was perfect. I've always felt like my contrition was imperfect. I guess they call that attrition. And I mean, it all comes down to putting your faith in God and your trust in God and your confidence in God and the mercy of God. But I'm just trying to explain the despair of like the feeling that you're in hell already, like you are
Right.
damned. You are damned
Right. Well,
because
and like Saint Faustina described that feeling when she during just certain moments of dark night of the soul. And I think Padre Pio's described that feeling. And like, so I feel like that's a natural, like, is that a natural part of the Christian life, or is that not natural in this context because you did something to warrant that feeling, or do you know what I'm saying?
I think that if you're what I'm getting from Saint Alphonsus is if you're a sensitive Christian who has the grace of you're even if you're in mortal sin, you have the grace to have the faith
Mm-hmm.
to cooperate with God and to go to confession and to get back in the state of grace. There's a certain point in time where you've used up all your sins and then you no longer have that impulse, oh my God, I've offended you and please forgive me and please allow me to go to sacramental confession as soon as possible, get
Mm-hmm.
this off my chest, get back in the state of grace. Like that's the feeling I've always had when I fall into mortal sin since my confession. Since my conversion in 2009. I've always had that feeling like, oh my God, get me back in the state of grace, please. Let me live long enough to get back in the state of grace. But at a certain point, St. Alphonsus says, if you continue to abuse the mercy of God, there comes a certain point where you no longer get that panicky feeling. You no longer get that feeling. You're just like all the other atheists or lukewarm Christians that you meet who say, well, sin's not a big deal. Sin, God is merciful and whatever. And
Mm-hmm.
you don't feel it. You're not on fire anymore and you don't have that contrition. So is it natural or unnatural? I'd say it's not natural. I'd say it's a grace. It's a grace to feel that sort of holy
Panic.
anxiety, that holy panic. But despair in and of itself, in the technical sense, is a sin. So we have to have the hope. Like, I mean, when I was passing some feverish nights waiting to wake up and go to confession over the
Mm-hmm.
past 2 years, I just kept praying. It doesn't feel like there's hope, but I'm going to put my hope in your mercy, God. I'm just going to put my, it's just like a Hail Mary, literally a Hail Mary.
Right.
Like, I do not feel good, but I don't have a choice. I've got nothing but this hope in your mercy. So that's a grace, right? That's a grace. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a self-inflicted tragedy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And there are saints who do not sin, not even venial sin. I mean, some of them don't even do venial sin. But they still undergo the dryness, the darkness, and all this sort of thing. That's a much holier exercise than what you and I might go through because of our willing blindness, our willing pride, like our
Right.
obstinacy in sin, and saying, "Yeah, well, God, I sorry, I don't choose you right now. Right now, I choose short-term
Pleasure.
pleasure or
Right.
whatever it is, whatever that might be."
Right. Yeah, I always wonder, because I've experienced the same things that you experience, but I always find that I'm always in gray areas, or where like my sin is just so pervasive that I'm just like, oh,
Mm.
what is it? What's that? Does that count? You know, and
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
I try not to even go to those areas anymore where I get panicky, because I'm just like, you know what, I can't worry about it, because then I'll just obsess over it, and then typically it ruins like my receptivity to the sacraments then too,
yeah.
because I know that the devil really like eeps in. So I'm
Mm.
do I receive confession today or receive communion today? And it's like, yes, you absolutely do. And then if you can't get to confession before, go after and let
Yeah,
them know, like, hey, I don't know. Like, I'm
yeah,
never in a good
yeah, yeah,
headspace
yeah,
to do that.
yeah,
And I just cover it that way
yeah,
because I know that Satan is always trying to mess with me in the
yeah, yeah,
best way possible, and will always be like, that confession didn't count, or that communion damned you, or it's kind of like if you're in a crowd of people and you see attractive looking people and you're like
mm-hmm.
looking around,
Mm-hmm.
just because you're a human being and you're looking, and then you see somebody that happens to catch your eye, and
Yep,
then it's, did I look at them because I wanted to, or did I just look because I turned my head? And I don't even,
yeah,
like, with that stuff, I just don't even engage the conversation. I don't even, like, if that dialogue starts to occur, or that inner monologue starts to occur, rather,
shut it down.
not a dialogue, I shut it down. I just ignore it. I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah,
If it was me, if it wasn't me, I have the ability to commit that sin, and if it wasn't me,
yeah,
okay, cool.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know what
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean.
yeah,
It just,
yeah,
and then I live in peace and I back away from it, because it's just like, I've actually been thinking about that in another way, like the way that we use our brain and the way that like meditation affects the brain. And like the state that we're kind of supposed to live in, where we're like disassociated with like the thoughts that we have, so that we can step away and say like, I don't, Aidan doesn't have to be that thought. And even if Aidan did think that thought, like, okay, move on to the next one. And Jesus is merciful, and he's gonna, you know, he's gonna take care of that, whether or not, um, I was the source, or just the person receiving.
Mhm.
Um, but that kind of makes me think of, back to the stuff about the rosary. I know you're a daily rosary um, uh,
Practitioner.
practitioner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to ask you a little bit about your
Yeah.
prayer rule with the rosary. How much of it do you pray every day? Do you do 5, or do you do
5.
15 or 20?
I do 5.
Okay. How long have you? I know that you're very steadfast. You've probably been doing that like every day, right?
Yeah, I've skipped a few days on purpose during the pandemic just because my faith life has been suffering.
Mm-hmm.
But lately, I'm emphasizing like there's certain practices that I'm not doing anymore. Like, I have. Are you
I know
aware?
you're.
Are you aware of the? Can you see on your screen this?
Yes, I can. Living with Christ.
Yeah, it's the missal. So
Okay.
the daily readings and their the lives of the saints in a very cursory form in the back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the saints. I love reading that
Yeah.
every day, but right now I'm not in the habit, and I'm making a compromise where I say, okay, I'm going to pick and choose my favorite devotions, and I'm going to do those. And when I rebuild my strength, then I will give myself another 15 minutes a day for that, because I do enjoy it. It's like it's one of my most enjoyable devotions
Mm-hmm.
is the daily readings and the lives of the saints.
That's cool.
It's one of my favorite devotions, but for whatever reason, it's just like I can't handle it. Like I'm just not spiritually strong right now, even though I enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I can waste 2 hours doing stupid, godless, mindless, waste of time stuff, but I've decided not to do this 15-minute thing because I'm not spiritually strong enough right now. So I just do my rosary, I do my morning prayers, my evening prayers, and I do my spiritual reading at night before bed, which is in bed with my Kindle. I just read St. Alphonsus Liguori. That's it. So
Cool.
I'm missing out on the 15-minute thing, and it's just sort of like, I don't know. I'm like saturated to the point where I'm struggling so much spiritually that it's like it takes everything I have just to like, for example, I don't go to mass on Sunday, and I have
Because you can't, right?
because I can't because I'm not
Right. Okay.
vaxxed. And I feel a bit bad about that, but I don't even watch it on the internet because I hate watching the mass on the internet.
Right.
Just like
Do you read it?
just like I would love to have sex, but I'm not going to sit there watching porn. It's not the
Right.
same thing. Sorry.
Right.
So I'm not going to do that. To me, that's pornography. Like if I'm like looking at, it's not really, I mean, this shouldn't blaspheme, but I mean, to watch a mass on television to me is like doing confession over the telephone. It's just makes me sick. Like I just don't,
What
you know.
about confession over FaceTime?
I've never tried it, and I don't know if it's
It's not.
if
I
it's
don't think it's
legit.
legit.
I don't think
I
it's
don't think it
legit.
is. No, but
It just
I don't
creeps
know
me
why.
out. It just creeps me out that the world, meaning Satan, wants to
Uh-huh.
push us into metaverse and all this sort of stuff. And
Are you joining?
no.
You should be a duck. I see you as a duck.
Yeah, that's my nickname. My wife calls me Ducky.
Does she really?
Yeah, for the.
That's weird that I put my finger on the pulse. Didn't even realize.
So
But the
yeah,
bottom line is that
I pray the rosary. I don't pray it
You
well, but I
do.
pray it.
Nobody prays it well. That's not a
The
thing.
saints
Nobody,
pray it well. The saints pray it well.
maybe they. I mean, Saint Teresa of Lisieux didn't pray it well. She
No?
often talked about how poorly she prayed it. Yeah. She was cool in that way. That's the only thing I really liked about her, is that she was just like, man, I hate it. I hate it. I'm bad at it. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Thank
Yeah.
you. Okay, so you pray. You do like 5 decades. You do your 5
Yeah.
decades a day.
I do it on. No, I'm confessing to you again. I do it on. Now I'm in the bad habit of doing it on my bicycle on my ride home from work.
Dude, I find that like taking prayer in and out of different contexts
It's okay?
is real. It's really, yeah, it's really important because prayer is supposed to be like as flexible
Ongoing.
and malleable as we are. Yeah,
It's not compartmentalized.
Yeah. Why? I mean, like Kieran has his prayer rope in his hand all the time, and like he is just heinous. So he'll like FaceTime me on the toilet, and he has his prayer rope in his hand, and I'm like, dude, probably prays that while he's like dropping a deuce. He does, by the
Yeah.
way. So, but what's wrong? What like if you really sit and you think about it, like why would that be an issue? I mean, if you're
I
giving,
pray every time I go to the bathroom, number one or number two. I always pray.
yeah, and
Actually,
so does my dad.
yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
It's like it's a very focused moment, right?
yeah,
So plus it's like a good time to think about health, because a lot of health issues have to do with your toilet habits and like your digestion and stuff like that. So it's a good time to think about, like, as I age, maybe I'm gonna have problems with my gastrointestinal system or whatever. It's a good time to think about health and to pray for better eating habits. Like, it's all connected with gluttony too.
sure.
So there's a lot to pray for while you're taking a dump or dropping the kids off at the pool, as they say.
Indeed, indeed. Um, well, speaking of food habits, are you gonna do anything with food for Lent?
When's Lent starting?
Don't know. Isn't that pathetic? I don't. I have no clue.
Okay, let's Google it.
Hold on. Let's see.
April
Oh,
14th,
wait,
Thursday.
that's when.
Or
No.
March 2nd.
Okay. Really? Nice. We got a month that we
Lent,
don't have to do anything.
Lent begins on March 2nd, 2022, and ends on April 14th.
Sweet, man. That's great.
So yeah, I'm going to try to cut out cheese and maybe sugar.
Sugar's what I'm going for.
Oh boy.
And the only reason why I'm saying that is so people can hold me accountable for it because I'm really addicted to it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. What about little hidden sugars, like
I'm going to allow myself bread and I'm going to allow myself fruit because I'm not going crazy. But like any prepackaged nonsense, I'm not really going to do.
those little packets of sugar, like
Right? Yeah, dude. No, man, I like wake up and I like crave sugar. I'm like, oh.
in anticipation of Lent?
What do you mean?
You're
No,
craving it
just
more?
no. I naturally I eat too much sugar.
Yeah.
And all the time, and by I mean, and I don't even say that like in a ha. I eat too much sugar.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a legitimate food addiction to
Yeah,
sugar,
so do I.
and it's so bad. Like the maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I did a ketogenic diet,
Oh.
and when I was quitting sugar, everybody told me that I wanted to bite their heads off. I was like really like super moody and aggressive, but like I wasn't. I was just a little bit less upbeat at work than I typically am. But I could literally, like, when I would walk into a store, like, you'd smell candles. Like, I could smell the sweetness of the candle. I could smell the sugar in food. I had massive headaches for weeks. It was really awful.
God.
Very unpleasant experience. So,
That's a foretaste of the despair that comes at your death.
Indeed.
All your attachments come back to haunt you.
They do. So you're supposed to get rid of them little by little now.
Yeah.
Lent is supposed to be a very practical undertaking, where it's like, oh yeah, pick this, work on this, and just progressively, like, you know, trim the fat, cut out the stuff that you don't need in your life, and you're supposed to then keep it gone. But yeah, I mean, like, if you think about it, so like, can you imagine if you, like, let's say you pick caffeine, right? You decide that you're going to break your caffeine addiction after you're for Lent, and then you do successfully do it, and then the day, Easter hits, and you're like, big cup of Joe, like, which is what everybody does. I mean, we all do it. But then, like, you think about it, you worked so hard, you broke an addiction, you probably dealt with a lot of pain and like suffering to break it, and then you're just like, let's do that heroin again, like, to celebrate. Like, nobody does that when it comes to alcohol or drugs, so why do we do it?
Yeah, that's a good point. So that sounds like you're kissing goodbye to sugar forever and ever.
No,
ever.
not even a little bit. No, that's why I hate food, because food is so. There's no way to properly behave with food because it's a necessity. You can't avoid sugar your whole life. You need carbohydrates. The human body is made to run on them. So
it runs on Dunkin'.
In America, I don't know about Canada.
Tim Hortons. Runs on Tim's.
What's Tim Hortons?
It's the Dunkin' Donuts of the North.
Do we have it in America, or is it just
I don't know.
Strictly Canadian? No?
I would be surprised if it didn't bleed over because it's just so dominant here north of the border. Like, how could it not bleed over? Like, you would need like one of Trump's walls to keep it out.
That's true, but they're taking those down. I
Are they?
thought.
Okay.
I don't know. I thought that. Well, everybody's complaining about immigration and um, uh, blaming it on Trump. I don't know.
I
Wall
don't
going
know.
down, wall coming up, something. Blah blah blah.
I stopped following Trump ages ago, but
Well, he's not the president anymore, so you don't have to follow him.
but so you heard about, speaking of politics, you heard about Canada. I'm wearing my only Canadian shirt, the Tragically Hip. I don't like the Tragically Hip, but it's got a Canadian flag on it. You heard about the truckers convoy, the Freedom Convoy 2022?
I saw the clip that you sent me, and I was like, "That's a lot of lights." That's all I really registered, and then I just kind of put two and two together. So, let me try to guess here. So, it's a community of not. I'm not going to use the word anti-vaxxer because I don't like that word, but a community of people that are against the current narrative, that are trying to protest it, and the news is trying to somehow portray them as a very niche,
Fringe group.
very small group, fringe group.
Yeah, of racist, misogynist, white supremacist, whatever, and XYZ.
Yeah. Well, anybody that would look at you would be like, "There's no way that guy's a white supremacist."
It's a well-kept secret.
Yeah. I mean, I know, and I know better too. But you just look like you're gonna roll out a yoga mat, and like,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and then you'll see me try to touch my toes. You'll be like, no, this guy's got zero flexibility.
That's okay. You don't need to be able to do that. But
no, I'm surprised you haven't heard more about the Freedom Convoy, because it's sweeping the globe. It's like it's inspired the Aussies to try another trucking strike, like another trucking convoy protest.
I've not heard it.
It's inspired a bunch of different people all over the world to use the truckers, or for the truckers themselves, to stand up for freedom from government overreach. Like, the basic idea is, it's pretty ridiculous if you read their manifesto. Like, they have a manifesto like they're going to Ottawa. They're in Ottawa now. They're going to lock it down, and they're not leaving until either the whole government resigns, the entire government, from Trudeau all the way down. So you try not to laugh, or just remove all mandates, masks, social distancing, business closures, passports, vaccination mandates of any kind, like remove all of them. So those,
That's ambitious.
I think those are unrealistic objectives, and it's a bit laughable, and it kind of undermines the whole thing, because you're just like, come on, it's immature to expect that. But people are getting behind it, just with the idea that it's just like a snowball kind of effect. It's like, hey, we thought we were like a tiny fringe movement, and that's what Trudeau said, we're a tiny fringe movement. But actually, people are coming out supporting, vaxxed and unvaxxed are coming out, because they're against the mandates, they're against the overreach by the governments. And so the people are coming out and supporting this convoy that's rolling towards Ottawa, and that has now mostly arrived in Ottawa. People are supporting it. People on the left, on the right, in the middle. People who don't care about politics. People who are vaxxed. People who are unvaxxed. People who are injured. People who are like all kinds of people. And of course, that will include, as Justin Trudeau loves to emphasize, it will include people that are misogynist, racist, pedophiles, whatever. It's going to include everyone. And
right
in the mix of everyone, you got people with some bad habits. You're going to have smokers, you're going to have drinkers, you're going to have compulsive masturbators, whatever. You're going to have unrepentant homosexuals. You're going to have all these things. But Trudeau doesn't list unrepentant masturbators as included in the truckers' convoy, right?
You want to start a band called Unrepentant Masturbators?
No.
Oh, okay. All right.
No, I do not. It's too embarrassing for me personally.
Come on, man.
Once a masturbator, always a masturbator. It's like it's a shameful thing. I think a lot of guys have buried their shame to the point where they think it's healthy. And I've been to events like music events or public talks where they say, "Oh, now a word from sexual health expert so and so." it's got nothing to do with the reason I came to this event, but then they start talking about the joys and benefits, health benefits of masturbation and of whatever other perversions, and
Sure.
it's being normalized so much in our society that I think a lot of guys aren't in touch with that shame and the guilt and with the fact that it's a sin, and
Sure.
it's sad to me. It's sad to me how dead people are to the gravity of sin and offending God. Not only in that way, but in all kinds of ways. Like that's just one sin among many, many, many ways of offending God. There's so many ways to offend God.
I feel like at times I feel like a big leather like leather piece of skin,
Okay.
and like like the sacraments and like sacramentals are like a salve that over time, after being applied, they slowly start to crack open this leather skin and like actually let the medication like seep into where it's supposed to go. And like I just feel like sin has basically like rotted like rotted my body, and it's and like it is the cause for my lack of feeling, like remorse for things, because like um when I started praying the Rosary, like a bunch of sins like sloughed off, and
Yeah.
masturbation was one of them. That took a little bit of time, but it was one of those sins that um, uh, uh, I had to ask for help for. There was no way I was gonna like kick that,
Yeah.
without the help of God. And
Yeah.
of course, it manifests in other ways now. So like, you know, got an awesome wife. So like objectification
Yeah.
and putting my eyes where they shouldn't be, and of course the temptation is always there. But I don't like hearing you talk about like, oh yeah, there's a shame, and I'm just like, shame. I don't feel shame. I just like I'm like I feel like there's a certain amount of cruelty that was allotted to man, and I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. Um, to like basically like let's give man a penis and a bunch of hormones, and let's make this grave, and let's take the male mind, like let's like make the male mind in a manner that, like, I don't know, it takes a long time for it to fully develop and mature into the adult brain that we now have, because with men it takes until we're about 25, 26 years old for, I believe it's the frontal lobes, to actually fully develop and connect to one another and pair action and consequence. And
Uh-huh.
so it's just like, it's like giving somebody a loaded gun and or a big red button to push, and it's just like, don't you push that button, and it's like, oh, but it looks so good, and so I don't know, man. At least you have the shame. It means that you're not calloused. I just feel like a shriveled like golem that's not capable of feeling true guilt for anything
Well,
anymore.
I mean, we're in different places, in terms of age, and circumstances are different and everything else, and God understands all the differences better than we do. But there is. I'm not scrupulous. I'm not scrupulous, and I know there are areas of my life where I don't feel sufficient shame.
Hmm.
For example, like laziness. Like, I'm intellectually aware that I should not be lazy, but I feel no shame. I feel no shame for being lazy. Okay? So
Sure.
does that make you feel better? Okay. I feel zero shame
Yeah,
for
more
being
or less.
lazy. But
Honestly,
I know it's
not
wrong.
feeling or feeling doesn't make me feel too bad at all. I mean, in one sense it does, but in another sense it's like, well, repentance isn't about feeling. Repentance is about repentance. It's about turning the
Knowing,
other
yeah.
way, knowing. And so it's like, I don't have to feel bad about this. I intellectually
Yeah.
know that I'm offending God, and I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, I'm really sorry, and I'm also sorry that I don't feel that sorry. And he's
Yeah.
probably like, you're pathetic. I'll have mercy on you because there's no
Sorry,
other
not
option.
sorry, you say to God.
Yeah, yeah, and he's cool, and I'm sure he has to be cool with that, because like, I mean, who else does he have? He just has a bunch of bums, like
Yeah.
working for him. So it's kind of like, and I mean,
The sick
yeah,
thought I had the other day, because
go for it.
the demons, when I'm in a dark place, which happens, which has been happening since the pandemic, periodically. When I'm in a dark
Hmm.
place, Satan, one of the temptations that he gives me is with sexual perversion is like
Mm-hmm.
really dark stuff, like, you know, incest, rape, all kinds of stuff, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
really, really, really dark and sick. And it's arousing for whatever reason. It's arousing for me in my mind. But
Mm-hmm.
God help me to never be subject to those thoughts flooding my mind ever again. And it can
Mm-hmm.
happen at church, it can happen at work, it can happen anywhere. But the sick thought that I had was, I wonder if God is turned on by me, how what a whore I am. Because, like, you know, if I have a fantasy that floods my mind of some whorish tramp or whatever, and it's just like just a scenario that plays out, and it's like all arousing and whatever for whatever sick reason.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't be because it's not wholesome. But I wonder if God sees me like this dirty whore, and it's like a turn on, and like the way that I'm resisting him is a turn on. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
I dear Lord, I hope not.
No, but you know how God says
Yeah.
He rejoices more for one lost sinner, one repentant sinner. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of this idea, like it is exciting. It is, in a certain sense, it is exciting for God when a dirty, disgusting sinner like me
Mm-hmm.
feels even any kind of repentance or sorrow for sin or contrition,
Right.
right? So
Right.
I'm trying to see, like, is there in some sick way, is there an analogy? And I know God's perfect and He's incapable of sin. He's incapable
Mm-hmm.
of, He doesn't fantasize. I mean, He lives in reality. He
Right.
is reality. But if
Right.
there's some sort of analogy where it's like, you know, as a humbling experience to say, look how disgusting I am, and yet God still wants me.
Right.
God still wants me. And in a certain sense, there's this idea, like, because I mean, this idea of rape is disgusting, but this idea of like God kind of forcing me, like a lot of my prayers are, God, like, if you want me, you're going to have to force me. You're going to have to take me by force,
Right.
you know, like penetrate me, you know, and it's like, I know it's dancing with blasphemy here, but there is this
Right.
sort of idea, like, I am disgusting, and yet God wants me, and He's going to have to force Himself on me, and I'm asking Him to force Himself on me. So it's kind of weird.
Well, I would definitely say you should be feeling major shame for all of this. No, I'm actually a couple steps behind you, but in the same line of thought lately, um, where like I'm slowly coming to the realization that any of my disordered desires are all going to find their end in God, and
Yeah,
so sex is like, not sex in general, but like any kind of disordered sexuality or misplaced sexuality is going to find its end in God.
yeah,
And then it's like, well, what does that look like? And it's also, don't be a prude, you know, like don't be
yeah,
because it's because if God is the bridegroom and we're the bride, then that analogy obviously has a grounding in truth, where it's like, well, I'm the receptor and he's the giver, and that's just how it is. And so then um, but like you're saying, you're dancing with blasphemy in that
yeah,
case. But I guess that's why in most Catholic spirituality um, you don't hear those things spoken about too much, because it's too difficult to teach without
yeah,
being like weird about it. But
yeah,
it's like, so whenever I see a nice looking lady walking by, it's like like, Jesus is better. Jesus is better. But if you really like scrutinize that thought, that's like a really weird thing to think. It's like, just think of a dude, just think of a dude, just think of a dude. And it's like,
Well,
uh,
I often say, if you picture Pope Francis while you're like tempted to do some solitary sin or something like that, it would be a
mm.
pretty good antidote. I couldn't think of a much better one.
Well, I mean, what about JP too? I mean, like, he was just yeah,
He was a good-looking guy.
he was a
What
good
time?
looking man. That's horrible. That's so bad that you make that joke. But there's something about John Paul II. I love that man. He's just
Yeah,
so
yeah.
cool. He's such a cool dude. But so anyway, back, I'm going to loop it
I
back
got
around
a
again.
little button here. Do you see that?
Oh, that's my boy. Look at that guy. What do you think? Do you like his edition of the
Yeah.
Luminous Mystery? I love the Luminous
Yes.
Mystery. It's cool, man.
Yes. 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 What are your favorite luminous mysteries?
what are my favorite luminous mysteries, or what's my
Your
favorite luminous mystery?
top five favorites. Just kidding.
My my top five favorite luminous mysteries. Okay, so my favorite luminous mystery would probably be the proclamation of the kingdom of heaven,
Yeah.
because there's a versatility in that one, and you can literally like pick like any
Yeah.
scene from the
What do
gospel
you pick?
basically and stick it in there. It rotates. So
Stick it in and
right,
rotate.
you can indeed, man. Continuing with the language,
Sorry.
it's sower in the seed was today because I was reading a meditation on the sower in the seed. But why? What do you use?
My favorites are just when he's sitting preaching, like just one of the unrecorded instances where it's like, because we don't have enough room in the whole world to document all that he said and did, right?
Mm-hmm.
As St. John said. So I think about one of the unrecorded times where Jesus was sitting like on a little hill or whatever and surrounded by people, ordinary people, and just talking wisdom. That's one of my favorites. The other one is more exciting. It's when he's sleeping in the boat and the storm comes and he just
Mm-hmm.
says, "Why don't you have faith?" and he calms the storm. That's one of my favorites because I need well, we all need peace, right? We need peace. I
Mm-hmm.
need peace. I crave peace. And sin so obviously destroys peace that I wonder to myself, why do I sin? Because I know that it destroys my peace. And what I want is, among other things, peace.
Mm-hmm.
So why do I sin? Because I know from firsthand experience it destroys my peace. So it's kind of like being mentally retarded or being on some weird drugs or being drunk
Mm-hmm.
and like, why do I
Oh
keep
no, it's
doing
just Saint
this?
Paul. It's just Saint Paul. You know, I do the things that I don't want to do. Or
The spirit is willing, the flesh is weak.
yeah, that's cool, man. Do you have a favorite luminous mystery?
Uh, I
Actually, what's your favorite mystery of the entire Rosary? Let's do that.
uh, let me think. I have to get in the headset here to think about that. I mean, I'm thinking right away of the sorrowful mysteries. Obviously, that's where I'm most excited. But it does move around a little bit lately. I'm just trying to think lately if I've had any sort of favorites. Um, I do. There's some that I don't like. I should talk about that maybe first.
Yeah, dude.
The I don't know why. I don't know why because I like the presentation. I like the idea of the presentation, but in my practice of the Rosary,
Struggle.
I struggle with it. But in theory, I like it a lot because it's sort of I'm a strong proponent of the Judaism, like Christianity is the fulfillment of Judaism. I love that idea.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very married to that idea. I like to emphasize that. And the presentation, I think, is a good example where that's exemplified. Like Jesus didn't have to go to the temple; he didn't have to fulfill Judaism, but he did, right?
Mm-hmm.
And fulfilling the law and all that sort of thing. And I also like in the presentation how I don't know if it's theologically correct, but I view it like Mary
Mm-hmm.
gives up Jesus,
Yep.
and by the grace of God, the temple, those in the authority that have the authority from God, give back freely without
Yep.
any obligation. They give back Jesus. So that's how I think about the presentation. So I do love it, but when I'm praying it, I just think, oh, presentation, oh, whatever, just get through this one. It's like it doesn't for whatever reason, even though I have some nice things to meditate on and to think about that I really am attached to. For whatever reason, I don't know why. Lately, I've been sort of just like, whatever, presentation, okay, get through this one. So, do you have any like that where you sort of have an aversion to one, or you don't feel excited about one?
So I do know my favorite, and the one. Let's see here. My least favorite, or my most rushed through. Um, hmm, trying to like get in the right.
Get in that
The
headspace.
the baptism.
Okay,
Um,
yeah,
that
I treat that one lately too.
yeah, that one. Because it's always like the same scene. I actually like the idea of him. No, not that. That sounds stupid. But I mean, like, it's always in my mind. Like, I know that I've pruned the neural networks to like do the same things over and over and over again. So I just go back to the same
Yeah,
stupid trite images that are
yeah.
like really fuzzy and not good.
Okay.
But just because my mind is weak. But I enjoy more thinking of him being driven to the desert after the baptism than the baptism itself.
Ah.
So that I'm always like imagining him like lacing his shoes that he's not wearing and like, all right, peace, guys, like getting out of there after being like, you know, driven into solitude. Because I love the idea of Jesus experiencing pain because I'm selfish and I like want to commiserate with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but my
Reason.
favorite's the crowning with thorns because
Ah.
it's just so it's just such a beautiful mystery and just like I don't know. There's just something so cool about God that would just like a God that would like take this crappy body and like then sit there and be like just beaten to a pulp for my benefit. And like there's just something just so metal about that
Mm.
where Fight Club,
Mm.
you know, when Brad Pitt is being beaten by Lou, the bar owner, and he just starts bleeding all over him and says, "You don't know where I've been. You don't know where I've been." There's something so subversive in Jesus's um, ability to be um, like martyred. That's just so. It's like, wow, what a man! Like that
Mm.
dude is like the like I want to be as strong as him one day, and I know I won't be, but you know, admiring that is all I've got right now. So
Well, I mean, like Paul said, the we can glory in our weakness because it's we need to be an empty vessel so that we can have Christ's strength, right? Like
right,
we acknowledge that we're weak, and that's a win-win situation for us, because if we think we're strong, then we're screwed. So we need to know that we're weak and make space for the strength of Christ, and we need to know that we're fools so we can have the wisdom of God and these sorts of things. But yeah, I mean, it's just like the mysteries that I want to understand best and to meditate on the most are the sorrowful mysteries, just because it's the key to transformation.
mm-hmm.
Like, it's the key to loving God, it's the key to appreciating what God's done for us, and it's the key to so many things. And when I get to the joy, you know, when I do the joyful or the luminous or whatever, it's just I don't feel as invested, just because I'm not as interested in that. But I also tell myself that it's all part
The
of the
process.
package and the process, and
Which is ironic too, because if you don't like doing certain mysteries, they have the same effect as the sorrowful mysteries because there's a kenosis that involves in pouring yourself out and dealing with like the
aversion.
rigid, or the aversion to them. What I like about the joyful mysteries is they kind of describe the process of what's happening when you're praying the rosary,
Okay.
and so like the Annunciation is basically just this.
Opening
It's
up
like
to God.
opening up to God and the receptivity of God. And then the visitation is, well, like the rosary is only good if you can then
Sure.
take what you've learned from it and then go and like carry that to other people. And then the nativity is excellent because it shows that Jesus is born in poverty, and what more like
Mm.
what better poverty can you get than being born in me? And then the presentation is cool because you then take those gifts that you get from the rosary and you hand them back to God.
Mm.
And then the finding of the child Jesus in the temple is what happens when you experience all of these things, and then one day it's gone, which happens when you pray the rosary, and then Mother takes you by the hand and leads you right back internally to find him again. So there's this kind of
Mm.
like in those mysteries, I see like this kind of summation of what's going on when you're praying.
Interesting. You know,
Yeah.
I don't have all of the 20 mysteries as icons or images, but I do have
Mm-hmm.
a couple that I use in my shrine
Mm-hmm.
that sort of help guide me. And for whatever reason, for the finding of the child Jesus in the temple, I have a bearded Jesus, so he's obviously
Mary.
not a child. He's obviously not a child, but
Mm-hmm.
I just, for whatever reason, I've gotten into the habit of looking at this one while I pray the that mystery,
Mm-hmm.
and Jesus has the well, it's an open book. I would imagine it's the Law and the Prophets. But what I use that as a way of thinking about Jesus, the knowledge that he has when he's asking questions to the rabbis in the temple, okay, and when he's pontificating or speaking and explaining to the rabbis, I think about the law, the Ten Commandments, and I think about the teachings of Judaism, and I think about the eternal truth that's in the eternal Word, the Bible, and I think about how God sent Christ into the world to communicate that and to explain that and to interpret that and to fulfill all of that. And I think about how if I were to be transported while I'm praying the Rosary into that scene, the child Jesus would have all kinds of teachings that he could expose me to. And so I turn that into sort of like a teaching moment, right? Like, and there's something that I like about that. Like I just sort of like stumbled into this habit, but I like it because there's something about having a young child teach you. Like there's sort of like a purity and an innocence to a child. Like even though Jesus is just as innocent as a 30-year-old as he was as a 3-year-old, but there's something about submitting yourself to a teacher who is so much younger than you, and like it just naturally opens you up. Like if you walk,
because it's humility. It's creating fertile ground through humility.
Yeah.
And that's like,
so I found that very powerful.
Yeah.
Even though it's a little bit off the beaten track in terms of what people would typically think of.
No, and I'll take that a step further. I think the cool thing is that you can create a kind of a memory palace or a memory room kind of experience with that if you wanted to, and then you can fit like whatever Old Testament teaching you want to fit into that mystery, and like put a lens through that for like the child Jesus teaching that to you. And because everybody says, oh, the Rosary is a compendium of the gospel, but it's like maybe it's a compendium of the entire Bible. Like what I think that it's more than what we give it credit, but I think we know that. It's just that we tend to talk about it in limited terms because we talk about it in the way that we engage with it. But I think it was Father Peyton who talked about it, and he said, "Oh, what a cosmos the Rosary encircles." And I'm like, yeah, actually, it does encircle a cosmos. It is encircling God Himself. It is this image of the face of Jesus, and it holds everything I could possibly want. If you read the promises that Saint Louis de Montfort talks about in The Secret of the Rosary, not just like the traditional 15 promises, which is not even actually in that book, because I think those came around later that they were actually presented. He talks about knowing Jesus in a perfect manner. That's a really bold claim to make about something. And so literally, if you wanted to, you can cram so much good stuff into just this single mystery, like finding the child Jesus in the temple, or the proclamation of the kingdom of heaven, and you can kind of just run with it, and it becomes this very huge devotion that we always looked at as like 15 decades and very like staunch, severe, stern, and not fluid at all. But
it's a metaverse.
It is, dude. It's a person too.
Yeah.
In a weird way, the Rosary is a person, because you're entering into the body of Jesus, and it's every person in the body. So one of the promises, and this could be crazy, this could be heresy, don't care, I'm going to say it anyway. But when you pray the Rosary, every one of the heavenly court becomes an intercessor for you, right? And basically I realized one day, oh, the Rosary is an icon of Mary. It's like even just the physical Rosary, because what it was I was looking at it, and I was looking at it like this, where Jesus was in the center of it, and you have the border of it as the body, and then they all share the same mind, which is Christ crucified.
Wow.
And we get a chance to enter into this living body. And most of the time the focus is Mother Mary, so most of the time it's you're engaging with Mother Mary, but really you can pick any of your favorite saints and you can turn to that angle, whatever that is, and enter the body through that angle and engage with it in a way that's so much more life-giving than like a lot of the old texts talk about, and that's why I love St. John Paul II, because people have described him as like, they'd walk in on him praying the rosary, but he wouldn't. He was just floating in the air, holding his rosary, groaning because he couldn't, because he was wrapped up in such an ecstasy.
Wow. John Paul II?
Yep. Yeah.
I hadn't heard that.
One of my spiritual directors, Father Ganser, told me that. He's like,
Wow.
yeah, dude. Because I was talking to him about the form, and I'm like, dude, what happens if you like engage with a high degree of prayer one day, like you accidentally stumble into contemplation, or when you're done with contemplation, like, are you supposed to finish up your decades, or are you done for the day? Is that your prayer for the day? And he's just like, well, yeah, that's your prayer for the day. Like, don't worry about it. But so many people put so much emphasis on start to finish. Like, This is what you do.
Yeah.
And then you have to follow through with it. And that's that's a good way to be, because you do have to do that. But at the same time, it's so much bigger than that. And it's supposed to lead us to something, to an actual encounter with Jesus. So like, so much of the time we think we're thinking about him in these prayers, but really it's like, no, you're not just thinking about him. You can use it as an opportunity to directly engage him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I picture the door, like Jesus said, I am the door, right? So I'm thinking about what is the point of a door? It's to enter. Like, I mean, so my prayer life generally is like, yeah, there's the door. Yeah, I can see it. I can touch it. Like, I'm right here. I'm right here, grounded in the worst sense of the word, meaning like I'm in the world, I'm of the world, and I'm just like, here, there's the door. I'm doing my prayers. Ding, ding, ding.
Yep.
Okay, the door, it looks like this, feels like this. I'm familiar with it, but I haven't gone through the door. The whole point is to go through the door. So that contemplation is about like letting go and going through the door, right? Like, so that is the goal. Like, someone asked me, someone who's a friend of mine, he's into Eastern philosophies, Eastern religions. I don't know what he believes exactly, but he was telling me, like, do you pray or do you meditate? And I said, well, or do you do contemplative prayer, or do you enter into the silence? And he was just trying to find out, like, what are the different levels of prayer and meditation and contemplation and sort of thing. And, I admitted to him, as I admit to everyone readily, that, my prayer life is not very good because I'm a weak sinner, but, I do pray and I do meditation, and, that's easy enough. And I do spiritual reading. But when it comes to contemplation and entering into silence, like, I've maybe had a couple of moments where I've been able to, have the grace to go that far. But it's not like every day I'm entering into those higher realms, right? It's not like, but that is the goal.
Right.
That is the goal, and he was pleased to hear from me that is the goal, and that it sort of matches his Eastern mysticism approach. Because, I mean, obviously, like, I mean, we, East, West, North, South, we all know that it's the deeper the better, the higher the better, the purer the better, the more innocent the better, the more goodness and truth. And, we all agree about that.
Right.
And like some superficial and superstitious manual prayer life, it does have some merits, but it's just a baby step on a journey that has to go deeper and has to go higher. So I think every human would agree to that. Like, even the Satanists, I think that they know their different levels of power and sacrifice that they can make to have what they crave, which is pleasure here on earth. And they can have power and pleasure. And like, even they know there are different degrees and depths, and like, they can laugh at their little brother who is just taking the baby steps in Satanism. Like, you think that's exciting? Holy cow, you have no idea what's available once you open these portals to the demons, right? So even the dark religions, they have that. And so if you want to say, well, only Catholicism is the one true religion, and Buddhism or Hinduism or Judaism or Islam or whatever, they they don't have the fullness of religious truth. Well, yeah, obviously, but they still have so much common ground with us in terms of, you know, basic fundamental principles
Hmm.
and the mechanics of
Achieving.
yeah.
Well, and that's the thing too. So like, I always wondered, like, well, if those other forms of meditation aren't legitimate, like we're not, they're not licit, we're not supposed to engage with them, why do they still hit those same levels of prayer? Or like, why are they experiencing that level of contemplation, and why is their method getting them quicker than mine? And those are like legitimate questions. Those are like really big questions, because transcendental meditation, you ask anybody, they'll tell you it works. And the answer is that, or I'm finding that part of the answer, I don't know if it's fully it, but that we all have these natural mechanisms in our body that we can engage, that allow us to engage with the spiritual. And you have to have like the right system of theology as well, and you have to make them connect. They don't just naturally connect with one another. So like this method, the method that we employ, can be used by anybody, um, but it wouldn't, like, if they don't have Jesus, they're still going to have the effects of it, but they're going to be able to be led astray in that moment. But the effects are going to look the same, because there's this natural component that we have to be engaged in. And I think that like the Jesus prayer or the Rosary, while they're two very different styles of meditation, they both lead one safely to to contemplation, whereas those other avenues are not safe, and you're definitely gonna miss the mark, because the focus with Eastern meditation is always me, I am God, and the focus with Christian meditation is Jesus, the Trinity, He, they are God. And so you're gonna land you're gonna land elsewhere if you're aiming for you all the time. But when you pray the Rosary, um, people are like, well, what's the difference between that and a mantra? And it's like, probably not too much, man. Not for the brain anyway. The brain doesn't scan the brain, and the brain is going to respond, is going to have very similar scans, if you're praying in tongues and you're praying the Rosary, or you're engaging in centering prayer, or you practice a mantra, or you do shrooms. There are they. It's so funny. I was reading an article the other week about Carmelite nuns who practiced centering prayer, and they found that they had brain scans very similar to people who took psychedelic mushrooms, and except that the nuns' brain connections were deeper and more authentic looking than than the ones from the mushrooms. So it definitely showed that, like, if you really want to be open minded, pursue prayer. Don't pursue drugs. But when somebody talks about having a legitimate experience, a legitimate spiritual experience from the use of some kind of psychedelic, I can't anymore write it off and say, like, nah, that's bullcrap. In one sense, I could, but in another sense, if they came to me and said, I think Jesus is God, and I think He led me there through this avenue, I'd be like, yeah, I believe that. I think that that's legitimate, because God works through whatever little inch we give Him, and I think we're kind of superstitious about things. We kind of like take a poop on things that aren't, like, well, you like strawberry, I like chocolate, and then we, like, completely dismiss strawberry as illegitimate.
Yeah, conflating essentials with non-essentials in a lot of spiritual practices and stuff like that, and
And I'm going to
thinking,
say this,
yeah,
if Kieran's listening, happens a lot in Eastern Orthodoxy and Catholicism. There's a lot of, between the two of those things, there's a lot of with like the Jesus prayer stuff, and like if you look at like um, Palinism versus Thomism, there's a lot of talking past one another, and like, yours isn't legitimate and mine is legitimate, and you don't have the key and I have the key, and
yeah, yeah,
you see that happen quite a bit.
yeah. When we, you know, when we get married to our set of emphases and then turn it into that man-made tradition or whatever, like the idol that's
Right.
worshipped. That's well, obviously you can't do that if you're humble. You can only do that if you're proud. So I mean, that's the root of every sin. But I was thinking when you were talking about that, explaining that similar mechanisms, similar reactions, similar benefits for mental health and calmness and peace, whatever, all the benefits of prayer, so-called prayer of different practitioners of different religions. I was thinking about also about like explicitly illicit stuff that gives you pleasure, like sex, where you could
Hmm.
have, you could have a trip, you could have a certain exploration of that realm. Like I'm sure there are sexual perverts who have a lot of sexual partners and they explore this magical, mystical realm that that it's possible to enter into with
Hmm.
sexuality, but it's forbidden. I mean, it's just forbidden. Like you're trespassing, right? You're trespassing at that point, but still, you're coming back from that mystical voyage with truth. Like you are coming back with
Hmm.
truth, and you are
Right.
communicating that truth, and you write your best-selling book about that truth that you discovered through your illicit explorations.
Right.
Like there, it is true. I mean, this is what came to me when you were talking about East versus West or different religious approaches to meditation and contemplation or whatever. It's like we are
And by the
allowed.
way, I think they're all really cool, except like boning your way into enlightenment is kind of lame. But I love the idea that there is this like circular, like through all of those different methods, there's this circular way to get there. But like only in those differences do we have that complete picture to get there, and it all leads to the center, which is Jesus. But I guess it's just when people kind of act um, high and mighty about their method that it gets to be annoying. But I love that there's people out there doing um, uh, centering prayer, even though I don't necessarily agree with it, because it's like, well, that really seems to work for them, and I like their perspectives on things. I like that they're doing something different and they're willing to continue engaging with that, because years down the line there might be a church sanction that actually says, actually, that was pretty good, we should keep that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't
Yeah, yeah,
know
yeah.
it.
No, I mean, I try to keep an open mind about the different paths to God because I don't know if you caught it. I mentioned it a couple of times. Once when I was reading this, Fundamentals of Catholic Dogma by Ludwig Ott, and then in
I don't
another.
know how to read, David.
But I did mention it in a couple of episodes, but I'll repeat it to you just in case you missed
Hmm.
it. But basically, what he says is there are, I don't know how authoritative it is, but he said there are four kinds of people, and
Men,
they're two categories.
women.
They're
uh
no, the well, basically, okay, the two destinations, heaven or hell, right? Ultimately,
hmm.
okay. So those who are destined for hell, like they will end up in hell.
Hmm.
That's one of the four categories. But the other three, they make it to heaven, and because they make it to heaven, they are considered members of the Church of Christ. Okay,
Hmm.
and this is what Vatican II talks about. This is what blows my mind about Vatican II, and this is why I will always defend Vatican II against Sedevacantists and everyone else, the Radtrads,
Hmm.
because it is so exciting to me to know that there is absolutely no possibility of salvation outside of the Catholic Church, just like there was no possibility outside of Noah's Ark, right?
Hmm.
It's so exciting for me, but it's also scary. And the way it's reconciled, that tension is reconciled with my love of my non-Catholic neighbor. The way
Hmm.
that's reconciled, that tension, is through these three categories of members of the church. There are those who are full members who are in the state of grace and who have the faith. There are, in the second class, there are people that have the faith but who are not in the state of grace.
Hmm.
Okay? And the third category is the most exciting of all. These members of Christ's church don't even have the faith yet. Yet, right? That's the key word. So we have to think about it from God's perspective. God knows the destiny of each and every one of us. It's either heaven or it's hell. Those who are damned, ultimately, that's their category. But everyone else makes it to heaven. And that includes the atheist, the agnostic, the Muslim, the Jew, the Hindu and the New Age and that sick pedophile over there that looks like he's damned and he's on death row.
Right.
Because if he's not damned, he's going to heaven. So this is what I love about Vatican II. This is what I love about Christ and his church, is that if you're not going to hell, you are going to heaven. So this makes us right away not judge our neighbor. We don't judge our neighbor because that neighbor, for all you know, is a potential member of Christ. And he is, by definition, a member of your church, right? Even though he's not in a perfect relationship, far from it. But it's so exciting for me to think about that and to remind myself about that. And now the temptation would be to say, well, obviously this guy is destined for hell, but we're forbidden by the church to do that, right?
Right. Well, and why would you want to, too? I mean,
It's
like,
sick.
we like doing that stuff. Like, I was watching something with Father Altman the other day, and he was, like, emphatically stating, like, Judas's current occupation of hell.
Yeah.
And, like Judas is burning in hell, and I'm just like, oh, okay. All right there, God. Calm down, buddy. You know, like, there was just something really gross about it. And it's like, he's probably right. But why would you want to be right? Why would you and why would he say it the way he was saying it? You know, there's something like, you know, I don't like the dare we hope theology because it does kind of say like, hope Jesus was wrong. But I like the attitude that those people have where they desire salvation for all, because we should all desire salvation for everybody. That should be like the, that should just be the standard, you know.
Default
it's like,
position.
Yeah, it should be the default. Like, I really want to see that person in heaven. And, you know, how often do you find yourself sitting there thinking like, ugh.
Yeah. Well, the only reason I don't entertain hope for Satan and his demons is because the church says it's definitive, it's too late, they're screwed.
Right.
But if the church said
exact words, right?
if the church told me that there's some hope, then I would be excited. I would be happy for Satan that he has some hope. But the church tells me there is no hope for Satan and his demons. So I don't entertain any hope. I have zero hope for Satan and his demons. Even though I can picture another scenario where, like, not reality, but a fantasy where the church taught me that there's hope. But that's not the reality I live in. So I have zero hope, and I don't lose any sleep over it. But with Judas, I do have hope.
Right.
I do have hope. I do. Why? It's not much hope, but I do have hope. Why? Because the church will not say that Judas definitively is in hell. Even though if you read the saints, I did research recently about Judas and the saints. And I mean, I've never met a saint or read about any of the saints saying that Judas is not in hell. That anyone that talks about his ultimate destination, they say he's in hell, right? And they say it very, very confidently. Doesn't mean I need to believe it as the gospel. It's not an infallible statement.
Right.
So I do have a non-zero hope.
I guess they take that from Jesus's whole, like, well, it's better for that man to have not been born than for him to, which is a pretty brutal thing.
It's pretty much clinched. It's pretty much clinched.
Yeah. But at the same time, you're right, though. And I guess I'm tooting my own horn because I also said it was right, but I don't know.
If I were a gambling man, I'd say he's in hell.
Yeah.
Along with
I suppose I would too. And Hitler?
No.
You don't think Hitler?
I've got a lot of hope for Hitler.
You got a lot of hope for Hitler?
Speaking of cool band names, Hope for Hitler.
Hope for Hitler. Oh, man. Opening up for Hope for Hitler is Unrepentant Masturbators.
So, no, I got a lot of hope for tyrants. I have a lot of hope for Trudeau and Legault and like all the political tyrants. I have a lot of hope for them.
Are you making up words there? Is that what?
No, these are my elite political leaders in Canada.
It's funny names, man. Why can't they have easy ones? You know, like Smith. Yeah.
Jones.
Exactly.
Jackson.
You can move to Florida, and your life would be monumentally easier.
Yeah,
dude. Yeah.
You know how cold it is here?
How cold is it right now? Because I'm going to tell you how cold it is here.
I could tell you in one moment, and then we'll probably have to wrap up because my thing's going to run out. Do you know what Celsius is?
Yeah.
It's not too bad today. It's 13. No, it feels like, holy cow, what time is it? What day is it today? Are we Saturday? Okay,
Yes, it is.
it says it feels like minus 21 Celsius, but it's actually 15, minus 15.
Okay.
Is that right? Something like that. But here it says it is actually minus 13, feels like minus 18. So I'm not sure exactly sure. I'm getting two conflicting messages.
So it's 8 degrees out right now. It's 8 degrees Fahrenheit,
And
8.6.
this is as warm as it's been for like 2 weeks because it was like minus 30, whatever that is in
It's
Fahrenheit.
disgusting, dude.
Disgusting.
It's 36 degrees Fahrenheit right now here, so just above freezing.
Okay,
Um,
that's nice.
but it was a chilly day. It was the coldest day it's been in a long time. But
Yeah.
Yeah, come to Florida, man, and you won't have to deal with the same kind of mandates. People walk around without their masks.
Nice.
It's not bad, dude. It's not bad at all.
I think the tide's turning. There's a lot of speaking of hope. I do have hope that the pandemic will wind down.
Mm-hmm.
That's not to say they're not going to roll out another pandemic with a really deadly, disease or whatever. But they'll probably take a break in between, let us gather our wits and feel comfortable, and then they can surprise us with something new.
Sure.
Or maybe they'll like start locking us down for ecological reasons, like gotta make sure we don't impact the weather. What are they concerned about? Temperature rising or pollution? Or
So are y'all not driving as much because you're locked down so much?
I don't have a car. I never had a car, so I don't
Oh.
drive. I have a very
Oh, wow.
small
Me
carbon
either.
footprint. Small carbon footprint. So I'm hoping
I
that.
don't drive a huge truck or anything.
Oh, are you joking?
No, I do. Yeah.
I'm hoping the next fascism will be ecological fascism because I'm going to be like the poster child for low carbon footprint.
Yeah, just walk around without shoes on the road. Sell the deal.
I'll be like the new Greta Thunberg.
Yeah, I keep hearing about her, and I saw a picture of her face, and I'm like, I don't like your face. Like, I don't like whatever this is. I don't like this. I like being intentionally uninformed about a bunch of things because I find myself less irritated.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
I was irritated today when my wife kept telling me to. We were watching a movie on Amazon, and it was one of those annoying independent films where like the background noises were louder than the dialogue, and we couldn't hear the dialogue. And she's like, "Can you turn this up? Can you turn it down? Can you turn it up?" And I was like, "You just hold the remote then." And I'm like, "Why'd you lose your temper? You're such a douche." Like, be not. It's like you're watching a movie, man.
Did you say sorry right away?
No, because I felt like it would have been too, like there are
Obvious.
some moments when there are moments when you do apologize, and there are moments where you're like, just like let it go,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like, yeah, dude, I get annoyed by stuff like that. So like, when it comes to like the political climate, I have to like completely disengage with it because it's just so obnoxious. As soon as I started hearing about the metaverse stuff, I wanted to like vomit, But are you gonna join? Are you gonna be?
No. I'm not on Facebook. I haven't been on Facebook in years.
You're cooler than that, huh?
No, I'm easily annoyed by like a tsunami of, is it tsunami or tsunami? Anyway, a flood of negativity and whiners complaining and bitching and like hating each other and like just us versus them, and I just hate the antagonism, the constant antagonism. Like, I mean, I like nothing more than two men getting in the octagon and fighting. Like, I like that. I like intellectually, I like when people have opposing views and they discuss it with respect and they try to impose what they perceive to be truth onto the other, what they perceive the other to be an error. I love that, but I don't like petty insults and just put downs, and I found on social media there's a lot of that. And like you said earlier about ostensibly religious people condemning each other and damning each other to hell and that sort of thing, that disturbs me deeply because it's one thing for some uneducated atheist to treat his fellow man like that, but for someone who knows and loves Christ to treat his fellow Christian like that. It's a bit nauseating.
Yeah, it is, because it's directly contradictory to the nature of Jesus, who said, uh, learn from me, for I'm meek and humble of heart. I don't think somebody who's humble like goes around telling everybody that they're wrong unless they believe the way that they believe. It's kind of like really missing the point
Oh
in a
yeah,
lot
I
of
wanted to
ways.
mention before we wrap up, I did want to mention I was watching something. My wife made me watch something. It was like some new age chick, like she's from the East, like I don't know which
Is she
country she's from.
Eastern herself, or is she?
I think she's like from Thailand or Cambodia or something like
Uh-huh.
that. But she was talking about karma, and she was talking about her sort of new age Eastern point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, my wife was sort of watching me to react, like if I would have a bad reaction to it. And afterwards we kind of discussed it just a little bit, and I let Anna know that I was very touched by two things. First of all, karma. It's like I've always promoted the idea of karma
Mm-hmm.
minus reincarnation, right? Like we are
Right.
individuals, but our actions have consequences, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a big fan of karma, the idea of karma. I think it's very, very good.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't have morality without karma. So I think karma, I admire that. And the other point was, what I found very touching was a very simple principle. And that is, do not ever have ill will toward your fellow man. Like that, to me, that's true religion right there. That's the essence of true religion. Don't have ill will toward your fellow man. Right? Like, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if you have that and you believe that and you act on that, you strive to live up to that. What more do you need? Like, I mean, really, what more do you need? Because you, like Jesus said, if you seek, you'll find, and if you knock, the door will be open. That's the
Mm-hmm.
door. Like, that is the door.
Well, the cool thing about Jesus is too is that he takes that to the next level, where he says, love one another like I've loved you, and it's like that doesn't that like so far supersedes. I mean, because like what you're saying is good,
Yeah.
have no ill will towards men, but Jesus was like, yeah, multiply that by 10.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah. Yeah.
saying
Yeah.
love man like God loved man, and it's just like, well, that's a tall order. But I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
if you shoot there, you're going to end up where you're talking
Yeah.
about right now. And so
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's very compatible, which is so funny because people hate Jesus and they love those new age ideals, and they're
Yeah.
just like, ugh. But it's like he was you know like his ideals far exceeded all
Yeah,
these
yeah,
other
yeah.
ones.
I wouldn't want anyone to misconstrue what I'm saying, to think that that's the final end point. But I'm saying that
Sure, we just
honestly, it's a great
yeah,
gateway drug to the true religion.
absolutely, yeah.
Because
Yeah, I can see that.
if you're striving for a pure and good, even though, like you say, it's not the fullness. It's not the fullness of practice. But if you're striving for that pure principle and other pure principles, truth, goodness, and do no harm, these sorts of things, I mean, the graces are just going to flood in. The graces are going to flood in. There's no one that's sincerely striving for truth and goodness that isn't flooded with graces. So you need to bear in mind that that's what I had in mind with this
You're a
my
heretic and you're
appreciation.
going to hell, man.
No. But can you imagine?
Terrible.
Can you imagine if people stopped having, like, just think about it. People stopped having ill will towards each other. How that would transform politics, business.
I think people would get bored, don't you think?
No,
Yeah.
no, no, because people are wonderful. People are amazing, and if you put people not first, because we have to put God first, but if we put people in their proper place, meaning that we understand that they have dignity, infinite dignity, we won't be chopping them up in the womb and selling their body parts.
Right.
We won't be, giving them end of life drugs so that we can get that bed empty at the old folks' home. We won't be doing all these sick experiments. Like, I mean, I don't even think, I had tears in my eyes the other day just thinking about how people abuse their pets. I don't know what happened. I saw some dog that was sad on the street or something, and I just thought, what is the owner doing to him? And then I just like had a tear in my eye thinking about this poor dog. Like, there's so much suffering even with the animals that are being tested on for medical reasons and this sort of thing. Like, it is sad. It would crush you. It would crush the most macho man alive today if he actually were able to get in touch with what's happening, like the pain and suffering in the animal kingdom. Like, I think it is devastatingly depressing, and I think that God is angry about it. I think God's angry about the mistreatment of animals and the mistreatment of nature. That's why I'm not angry with Pope Francis for emphasizing the environment and our stewardship of the plants and the animals, because I think God's angry. God is legitimately, righteously angry at us for not caring.
Right.
I mean,
absolutely.
I'm upset, and I'm like a callous guy. I hate pets. I'm not a fan of pets, or I don't have a house plant. So it's like I'm just a callous,
you do know
selfish
plants
loser.
aren't pets, though, right? Okay.
My pet rock.
It's like, no, dude. No, I get what you're saying. Which is why it's always cool to talk to you, because it's like the Catholic mind. The Catholic mind isn't east. It isn't west. It isn't right. It isn't left. It's in the center with Jesus, or with with the Holy Trinity. And I see an authentic striving in you to get to the actual truth, not to like not to just pick a side. And so, which David, a lot of the time I notice that it's at your own expense, because you're not that you're hated by anybody, but that's the easiest way to be hated by everybody. It's like you're like I'm in a sense you have picked a team
Christ.
Or like it's like Jimmy Aiken, where Jimmy Aiken like talks about like he's a Thomist, but like not when Thomism's stupid. He's like yeah, I'm a Thomist, but not not all. I'm not completely. I'm not just gonna bow down to this one system of philosophy because I want to use my intellect to get there. And I think that that's really cool. And even as I admire it, there's a piece of me that still rejects it, because humanity does that. We want to be on a team. We want to and we want to embrace something as a whole. And that's why there's rad trads. That's why there's leftist Catholics. That's why there's ortho bros. And I was going to say not safe for work, but that doesn't make sense. What are the politically correct lefters that are PC warriors, that annoy the heck out of us. We all just
SJWs.
SJWs. That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah. So
it's just easier. It's easier to hop on a bandwagon and what's my position on this? What's my position on that? And it would be easier, but I mean, if you the irony of being a Christian, a follower of Christ, is that there is a certain level of nonconformity. There's a certain level of rebellion. There's a certain level of antagonism towards the world. There's a certain level of what was the other aspect that I'm thinking about Christ? Oh, freedom. Okay.
There's an aspect of violence.
Yeah.
In one sense, definitely bringing a sword. Yeah, there's definitely something punk rock about it.
And counterintuitive a lot of the time. Like, I remember listening to a priest giving a sermon. It might have been Fulton Sheen, I'm not sure, but talking about the word astonishing. Like, the crowds were astonished, the Jews were astonished. People judging Christ were astonished when he was silent. Like, he's astonishing. Christ is astonishing, and so it's because we have come in our habits, like we're creatures of habit, and we've just come to expect certain behaviors from this type of person, from that type of person. Like you were saying to me earlier, I got long hair, so you picture me with a yoga mat, whatever, and like you get to know me and you figure out no, he doesn't fit the stereotype. Same thing with my wife. Like if you saw pictures of her, you'd have an image in your mind of what she's like. But no, you get to know where it's nothing like that, you know. And that's fascinating for me. Like that's I think every human being is truly unique and special and has something that is not reproduced anywhere, right?
Right.
And it's so magical and exciting to uncover that. Now, is it bottled up and hidden by a whole bunch of convenient walls and masks and things just to get through, to muddle through life without being, um, disturbed too much, like sort of coping mechanism? Like, okay, I'll put on this mask and I'll be the, it's like the gay NFL player that just is like pumping his body really muscular and big, and he's going to be the biggest and the most violent on the field because he's insecure that he's homosexual. Like you hear this story all the time. And there was recently
Is
a
that a
ba-
real? Is that a
yeah,
real
yeah.
person?
There was a Bachelor on. We watch reality TV, so we watch The Bachelor. It's getting worse and worse and worse and worse over time. Okay,
Hmm.
but there was a Bachelor on there that was a quote unquote virgin. Like I don't. When people on TV say they're virgins, like I just dismiss that. Like no, the standard is very high to be a virgin by the Catholic standard. But anyway, putting that aside, he claimed to be a virgin, but he went through and he had all these women to choose from, and then at the end he didn't get engaged, and he didn't even end up with a girlfriend at the end of it. And then he came out of the closet afterwards that he's gay, so called.
Hmm.
And then they made a documentary on Netflix about it, like about his coming out and da da da. And he talked to his pastor, and he's struggling with his Christian faith and how to reconcile it and all this sort of thing. But he was a football star, and like he was explaining psychologically and talking with other gay football players that have come out of the closet recently, and
Hmm.
some very well known, and about how they came out of the closet and da da da, and why they psychologically wanted to overcompensate by being very masculine and macho on the football field and this sort of thing. And so there is all of this to say that there is an inner struggle with people where they want to protect themselves, so they'll put on a facade. I'm a businessman. I'm never wrong. I'm a goody goody. I'm meek in my whatever it is, whatever your role is that you pick that you think you can navigate more safely through this dangerous world.
Hmm.
There is that danger of falling prey to that behavior, and then people can't get to know you. But most people have a certain level of accessibility where if you spend enough time with them, or if you're in a circumstance traveling or something where it's stressful, you do get in, you can find a way in, and you have that intimacy, and you're able to get to know the person, and you discover them. And then it's wonderful because they're a creature of God. They're like completely unique, even though they have a human nature and they have a lot in common with you and with every other human, and they have things in common with trees and birds and stones. But that unique essence that makes them is wonderful and endlessly fascinating, right? So if it provided we don't put up these walls, and the perfect analogy is child versus adult. The child is innocent. The adult has all this baggage. And that's why I think Jesus emphasized that we need to be like little children, to have that accessibility, that authenticity, that simplicity. And so yeah. So I'm just basically making much ado about nothing here, but the basic idea is that everyone is unique and wonderful, but we don't always get to see it.
Yeah, dude, it's true. What's his name? He's a Canadian, I believe. Jonathan P. The dude who does the very famous right now for all of his interviews and all of his videos in the symbolic world, Jonathan Pageau or Pageau.
Symbolic
Um,
world, what's that?
it's so there's this Orthodox icon writer slash artist, and he is also a college professor, I believe, and
Is he friends with
he
Jordan Peterson?
he is, yeah.
Ah, okay,
You should
okay.
check out his stuff.
Is he good?
Yeah, it's yeah, he's excellent. He's really good. A lot of his videos, I always I'll turn it on because I'm like, yeah, this is really neat. And then it's just so above me. It's just so above me. But he talks about the human person as being like a microcosm of the entire universe, and he and it's really cool. And this is kind of like reminding me of what you're talking about now, and just like how unique we truly are. This combination of both earthly and heavenly material, and just this kind of like simplified unit of the cosmos. And but we like to, cover ourselves up with a bunch of things so that we can, project whatever image we want to, because we think it's cool, or, we're insecure. And really, we don't need to do that. We just need to live as naturally and as simply as possible, and try to see others for what they are, and people will eventually see us for what we are. But you should check out his stuff. He's really good, really entertaining, much smarter, more articulate than me. But
Cool.
I bought a bunch of his merch for my dad and my brother for Christmas.
No
He
way.
does yeah, he does really cool stuff. So.
Merch meaning what? Icons?
Shirts, yeah. He does this really cool. I saw one of his shirts. Matt Fradd was wearing it from Pints from Aquinas,
Okay.
and it's like all of creation coming out of Jesus on the cross, and it's like spilling out. But it's just like the T-shirt is just it's so cool. It looks like your favorite band would do a T-shirt. That's like the kind of stuff that he does. And so I got a Saint Michael shirt for my dad, and I got a Jonah and the Whale shirt for my brother Zach, just because it looks like it should be in a band. But check his stuff out. Excellent. But he also talks about like just how important symbolism is in our world. But he takes like units like the Lord's Prayer, and basically how the Lord's Prayer encompasses all of the gospel just in the prayer. And what was the other one that he did? The parable of the sower and the seed, and how that covers the entire gospel. And just he takes things and kind of spins them in a way that like, and I don't even think it's not even genuine spinning. You think it's going to be this like heady kind of like, whoa bro kind of stuff, but then when you turn it on, it's very academic, very well thought out, and just very entertaining.
Wow, that sounds cool.
But it looks like I'm getting blown up here. My nephew is actually in the hospital.
Oh shit. Okay.
So I need to bounce and see what everybody is talking about.
Thank
but
you
it was
for coming
awesome.
On. Yeah, please remember me and mine in your prayers, and I'm going to be praying for you and yours as always. Okay.
Absolutely, dude.
And your nephew. And I pray for your nephew to have.
Please do. His name is Declan.
Do you know what's wrong with him?
Okay. Yeah, he broke his femur. Yeah.
Is that a big deal?
Yeah. Femur break is
okay. Oh shit.
He's gonna have surgery. So and he's like 2 years old.
Oh
so
my god.
Like,
okay.
Yeah, it really sucks. So pray for his mom, Julia, my sister, because she's really worried, and she,
Yeah. She needs that peace. She needs that peace of Christ right now.
Definitely does, man.
Okay, so take good care. We'll talk soon.
You too, man. All right.
Love you. God bless.
Love you too, man. Bye.